Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and I'm joined this week by the returning Max Grant.
It's good to be back.
So we're going to be doing three films that aren't really related to each other in that they're not part of like the same franchise or anything. I wanted to do an episode tying into the Backrooms film from A24 and Kane Parsons. I also just wanted to talk about some films that I haven't talked about on the podcast before. And there is a film that has recently come out that I do want to talk about that I didn't do an episode tying into. So it's just sort of worked out like this. So we're going to be talking about The Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, and Obsession.
All three of them I'm very excited to talk about. And I think, and we'll get into that, but I think that I've been an Obsession ride or die before this movie even came out.
And I think to sort of part of why I want to talk about these films is because they're all very tangentially linked to each other in that the Blair Witch Project, when it came out, was, I believe, like the biggest success in terms of a film making money at the box office relative to its budget. I believe Blair Witch Project was the most successful film, like from that margin.
Yeah, I do think you're correct, yeah.
And then Paranormal Activity came out sometime later and overtook 2007, overtook Blair Witch Project, and Obsession has now taken the spot Paranormal Activity had as like the number one film at the box office right now in that sort of budget range. Although I think it cost more than Paranormal Activity to make, but like it's beaten the record Paranormal Activity for like cheapest film at like number one at the box office. Or
yeah, I think it's something along the lines of due to them all being like low budget horror, well, not even horror films, just low budget films, and then having a huge return on investment. I think, that Obsession has just outdone the previous record that was set by Paranormal Activity, which before that was set by the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, so it's very tangentially related. To get into this properly, we've got the Blair Witch Project, which I rewatched for the purposes of this. I'd seen it before, but
Yes,
it had
I had seen it twice before, and I went back. I've just finished another rewatch of it, so I haven't even reviewed it properly yet on Letterboxd. But I've got all my thoughts ready to go.
It's the first time I've seen this film in a good few years. I can't remember the last time I did see it. It's a very iconic film.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some iconic shots in this film. Like
Yeah,
it's been parodied again and again and again, and it's been recreated in other films. But I have so much appreciation for what this film sort of kicked off all the way back in 1999.
I have a ton of I appreciate low budget filmmaking. It's something
Hmm.
I always connect to, because it's like, I could make a movie like that, with the where I'm at in life right now. I can make a film at that level.
Hmm.
I think this is a film that is it's a bit of a divisive film, I found.
I would 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Just doing some reading, like even looking at who I follow on Letterboxd and seeing like their reviews and stuff, that people are kind of divided on the film, and I find that very weird. I find it very weird how divisive. I don't find actually it's not that surprising to me that it is a divisive film, because I think people are just I think honestly, I'm gonna just lay my cards on the table. I think most of the criticisms people make of this movie are fucking stupid. I think this is a really great film. I really do. I think this
Hmm.
is one of the best horror films of the '90s. I would definitely put it amongst the scariest films I've personally ever seen. It's just such. It's simple. It's not. It did essentially invent a genre, which I have to give it credit for. But I think it's a legitimate. I think it's a legitimately great piece of filmmaking. I have a ton of respect for it, as well as like personally really enjoying it. You know, there's sort of a it's sort of a combination of I really enjoy the film just like as a film going experience, but I also really appreciate a lot about the film as well.
Hmm. Yeah, for me personally, I hadn't rewatched this film in, we say, about 2 years, maybe 3 years. But coming back to it, it just instantly reminded me of all the things I did enjoy so much about it. And like you've been saying, I do think there is a strong divide between people who love this film and people who don't love this film. I think it's mainly as a result of the fact that, like, I think there's not a lot of films today, like horror films today, are willing to be a slow burn to the same degree that the Blair Witch
Mm,
Project is. Let's think about our most popular horror franchises such as The Conjuring. It's pretty, like, it's got a pretty recurring rate of scares that will, like, it has a mission to terrify all horror
mm.
films. Whereas I feel like the Blair Witch Project um is, it's so much more focused on having you endure this terrifying journey alongside the characters. And then when you get to the end, that's when it reaches its peak. It's a slow burn, but it terrifies you with the smallest of things.
There are, yeah, sort of several different elements that do bother people. I think one of the biggest problems I've seen people have with this film is that you never see the witch, which I think is
And what
kind of.
Okay.
Are you about to say you agree with that, or
No, I was about to say, I was going to ask you what is your opinion on that, and then I was
uh,
going to say what I
I
think of it.
I don't think I think it was the right choice to not see the witch.
Right. I was gonna say I think it's the best part of this film. Watching who did the later one? There was another Blair Witch film. I'm
Oh,
forgetting his name.
Adam Wingard,
Adam
the
Wingard,
20
yes.
26 he just since done some of the Godzilla Kong films and
Yes.
other stuff like that. Yeah,
I was really annoyed watching Adam Wingard's film, I remember, because they're not afraid to show the witch. And it made me
yeah.
realize why I appreciate the Blair Witch Project so much, because keeping the witch and how the witch looks and all that kind of stuff a mystery leaves it up to your imagination. And I feel like imagination is so important for found footage films because it's what's not being shown that makes it so much scarier.
And they did. I'm aware they did reshoot the ending. They did like test
Hmm.
screenings, and audiences said, "Oh, you don't see the witch." Which, by the way, test audiences are fucking stupid. Like they just kind of ruin all the good. Like I just don't understand. Like, look, I understand the need for test audiences and to show them films, before they come out. But like there are certain times where it's like it's more of a hindrance than a help. And so yeah, my understanding is they did reshoot the ending where you see it was going to be almost this effigy. You don't like you'd see someone like strung up, I think, or something, and you'd see the witch and everything. And I just that would completely ruin the film. And I just think the reason the film doesn't work because I mean it's not the most clever or unique sort of I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but like saying that what's scarier in your imagination is always scarier than anything you can be shown. It is true because it would not have worked if you saw the witch. I think it would have been a detriment to the film because there is a bit of an ambiguity of like, well, what if it isn't real and it is just some crazy person? Like that's just the thing with the film is because you never see the witch, there is a sense of like, well, what if it isn't real? Like what if it's just some crazy person fucking with them? And I think that's
Yeah.
really fucking scary.
For me personally, I would be way more terrified of a witch. Like, crazy person. I can fight a crazy person. I can't fight a witch. They can put like a spell on me or something. We see like all the crazy like
Yeah.
charms and things, you know. I can't read a witch. I can read a crazy person.
Like, because I think Blair Witch Project is a very scary film. I mean that the ending, because I'm not gonna go like chronologically through it, but the ending where she goes down into the basement and then there's just the guy standing facing the corner.
Hmm.
Legitimately, one of my favorite,
Like
like
your
genuinely one of
favorite
my favorite
endings?
endings to. Would I say any film, or would I? It's one of my favorite horror film endings. Definitely, I think it's
Right.
so.
But it could be one of your favorite endings, just like period.
I'm trying to think of like endings I would like more because it's definitely not my favorite ending.
I think it's a
It's
great ending. I
I
personally don't find this film like terrifying necessarily. I think though that it's a great lesson in building tension because it
yeah
just grows and grows in tension throughout, and it's mainly as a result of character choices rather than situation. For instance, when he kicks the map into the creek and they do that reveal, I every single time your heart just sinks because you're like, no, you idiot.
yeah
And of course there's like terrifying, well, not terrifying, but just scary little things. You know, you've got all the charms and things up in the
yeah
trees and whatnot. And arguably one of the scarier things for me is when there's the rock piles outside of the tent because you build an image in your head once again of somebody had to build that while they and not be heard. So someone has been stalking
yeah.
around them.
And my understanding is that like the directors and stuff, they would do that without telling the actor. Like my understanding of how they made the film is they basically said is like directors and stuff would they do shit while the cast was asleep, so they'd
Hmm.
wake up or they'd send them like pages of like, okay, this is what we're going to be doing today. They give them like new batteries for the cameras and stuff. Like they did kind of isolate these three actors alone in the woods for a few weeks or whatever.
Yeah, I've
um
heard that. Yeah. And I've heard the scene where they run out of the tent or whatever and one of them goes, "What the fuck is that?" It's the directors chasing them.
Yeah, that's my
Um
understanding is there's like yeah, and there's like a scene where like the tent is shaking around or whatever, and that was like literally just the directors like fucking shaking the tent without telling any of the cast. And they had to have them
yeah.
I'm just reading here, they had to have them like sign like they had to have them sign something to be like, hey, just so you know, like we want to get permission to do this because, you know, the fear is real because it's not scripted. It was from my like they didn't really script it. It was just sort of like this is what
Yeah, I
today's gonna
think
be.
it's very loosely scripted, yeah.
And I think the problem with so many other found footage movies is they feel so scripted. They don't feel like this is how people talk.
Yeah, it's
And
very natural.
it's very natural dialogue. And I mean, we'll get into Paranormal Activity, but that felt very scripted as a film, just in how
Mm.
like the characters talk to each other and everything. Like another complaint I've seen is that they find these three characters very annoying, which I don't
Yes,
really
it's
get.
the biggest thing that I see. I think it's just because they're such flawed people.
And yeah,
Um,
and it's like I think the way they are reacting is like how else are they meant to react to all this? You know,
yeah,
I don't think they're it's not like I'm surprised they act the way they act. The lead actress apparently got a Razzie nomination for this
really?
film, which is insane because, yeah, I don't understand why. Because I think she's giving a genuinely really good performance, and there's that great scene near the end, which is essentially the poster of the film, where she's like the camera's like right up to her face, and she's giving this monologue to the camera.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. I think that the fact that she's gotten like been Razzie nominated when she delivers this insane monologue where it's sort of
Yeah,
talking about I'm so sorry to everyone. Like,
yeah,
did we not watch the same scene sort of thing?
yeah. And the frankly fantastic line where she says, "I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them."
Mm,
Genuinely better dialogue than so many other films, and it's not even scripted. Like, it is just something this actress came up with. And I think it's great. Honestly, I think the film does a really great job of, yeah, it builds the tension very continuously. I think I really enjoy, because sort of at the front end of the movie, you have these sort of talking heads, to the camera, where they're going around and interviewing all these different
yeah, the local people.
local people. Yeah,
Yeah, did you know that those most of those people were just like local residents?
yeah. My
Yeah.
understanding was, well, I believe I was incorrect about this, but I thought they just like they didn't tell them that it was like, well, because because I mean it is for a movie. Like, this is a film about making a documentary,
Hmm.
but my understanding was they thought it was like a real documentary that was made. Like, they didn't know that, oh, this is meant to be like, this isn't going to be a real documentary.
Mm.
But I read something that I believe they knew it was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like a film, like you're gonna tell like a story with this. This isn't, with like, you're just, this is sort of being used more for to establish the scene than anything. I think that does a really good job of stuff, because again, without knowing anything about the film, it's just sort of like, well, it just sounds like an old folk tale. It sounds like this old legend story. This old story that, is like one of those classic campfire stories. It doesn't. And I think they do a really good job of establishing that, so that when the horror does actually start and shit starts to go wrong, it does feel a bit like, hmm, maybe this is real.
Yeah.
I think this is I think this is a really great film. I really love it. I think it doesn't. It's not a particularly long film. It's like 80 minutes, which I think
Yeah,
it
it's
is
something
the
like
right
that.
length. Because I think any longer, it would probably start to get a bit like, okay, you haven't, get to the point now. So I'm just reading here that the lead actress apparently had difficulty finding employment after this film,
Oh,
which is kind of crazy. Because I read that she's like retired now. She's no longer an actress. So she apparently was getting typecast, had tons of audience backlash, and they used her real name in the film because, it was meant to be like, oh, this is a documentary. It's about, well,
mm,
it's supposed to be real, quote unquote.
yeah.
Which apparently a lot of people at the time did think it was real.
Yeah, I think even the marketing of the film was pitching it like it's a real documentary.
Yeah, and I think that's because you couldn't really do that now. Like, I don't think you could make. Well, you could make any like this kind of film. You couldn't market this kind of a film as like as real, because, well, Blair Witch Project exists, so it's like we know it's not
Yeah, but
real.
in
But
a make believe world, obviously, where this film
yeah,
doesn't exist. If you tried to make this film today and tried to
mm,
market it as this is a real incident that occurred,
mm.
it wouldn't work. But I think that's
No,
also a product of the era that it was made in.
I mean, yes,
Um,
this is a pre-social media,
yeah,
early days of the internet. Like, this is very early internet, so you couldn't really, because if this was they tried to, make this now, it would be so quickly, people would be like, well, that's obviously fake.
yeah,
They'd, because it would just be so easy to be like, to Google and like to find out all this, like it just, it couldn't be done nowadays. Like, this is a film you could only have made in this time period, and I think that's true of every sort of decade or so, or a period of time where it's like there's only films that could only be made in a certain place in time because of the, just because of either the production around the film, how it was, greenlit, like certain films would not be greenlit nowadays, all kinds of stuff like that. So I think it's a film that could only have worked in, that period of time. And I think that it's an interesting time capsule to look upon. And I think they kind of perfected it here. I really don't think this could have been done better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. Like, I think this is such a special film.
Mm.
I think my opinions have changed on it over time. But like, yeah, it is just such a special film in the fact that like it is such a product of its era. If you tried to
Mm.
make it today or if you tried to make it beforehand even, I feel like it wouldn't work. It was just the right place at the right time. And I still think it is quite successful for people who have a love for horror and who want to explore sort of the different subgenres of horror.
I think it's a very inspirational film as well, because it's like they made this film with practically no money,
Mm.
and it ended up being, such a, you know, massive, box office success. And to be honest, it like films like that probably couldn't get made anymore just because of like how the industry is now.
Yeah, what I'm
Um
reading here is approximately the budget was $35 to $60,000, with a gross box office intake of 248.6 million.
yeah, that's pretty great. They are doing like a new version, like a I don't know if it's a remake. I don't think it's a remake. I think it's like
Really?
a re Yeah, there's I believe my understanding is they're gonna make like a new Blair Witch project, and the original cast are just like, "Hey, so are we gonna get any like royalties for this?" Because my understanding is I don't know exactly what the like the right situation with it is or anything, but my understanding is they didn't. Yeah, they don't have like they don't have any. They don't get like royalties from it or anything.
Yeah, I'm just reading here that they're all coming on as executive producers.
I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's really, I think it's a really great film. Sort of the biggest problem I have with it is sort of what it inspired afterwards, but that's not like on the quality of the film or the filmmaking. It's just whenever you get something like this that's super popular, you're inevitably gonna get some sort of lesser than imitations.
Yeah, I would say that my score has dropped. I used to be a 9 out of 10. I'm now an 8.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, mine used to be a
I
9 as well.
right. I would also say, in sort of a similar vein to you, that I think my score dropping is not a result of this film's quality or anything of the sort. I think my score only drops for this film because I've seen so much more now, and I've sort of found my horror niche that really speaks to me. And I did find this time around that, there was a couple of issues that I had just in terms of pacing. Like, I feel like despite being only 80 something minutes long, that this film does in some areas really slow down when I'm like, okay, come on, I know what's gonna, and I think it's just because I've seen it multiple times now. So maybe this film isn't great for rewatches, but I have so much admiration for this film, and even though it's, fallen in my ranks a little bit, I still think that, you know, as a concept and as a film, it is insanely strong.
And then we move on to Paranormal Activity. Was very much inspired by Blair. Like Blair Witch sort of founded the concept of found footage as
Hmm.
a genre, and a very viable genre to make tons and tons of money. And we're only talking about the first one.
I
I
don't think
can
I've seen any of the other ones, so
Yeah,
all I can
I
talk about
I
is the first
can't
one.
be I couldn't be bothered. I couldn't be bothered about watching any more of them. And they are doing a new one, so it's very
Yeah, I've
possible
heard
if I'm
about
still
that.
doing the podcast, then I'll look at the rest of these for that. But we're just talking about the first one, and I think I didn't hate this film, but I feel like this is a film where kind of all the complaints about Blair Witch Project are kind of a bit more valid, and I think it doesn't quite understand why Blair Witch Project worked. And that's to be expected. I think that there's nothing. Look, I think conceptually I'm I think this is could be a very good film. And it was when it came out the most successful film, relative to the budget. It was like $15,000 or something, I think I read, which is insane, by the way.
Yeah, it's extremely low.
And it's just sort of
15,000 and it
15,000.
grossed 890 million.
890 million.
890 million, I think. Hold on, let me check. I'll
That's
fact check
insane.
myself.
Is that like
Paranormal Activity gross profit.
Yeah, that seems way too high. Is that like percentage? Like if you meant
Oh,
to say
that's
like
the franchise. My
the
bad.
franchise, yeah.
I
This one
misread. Misinput.
194 million.
194. Yeah, but and then it sparked the franchise to have made 190 million
Yeah.
gross, which is just an insanely strong franchise, despite the fact that I wouldn't say that the highest quality films ever.
I mean, I don't think people generally like them on the whole. Like I don't know. I think people like this first one. I think this first one is I mean, this is kind of the case with a lot of horror films is people are like, "Oh, the first one's good." People are like, "Yeah, that's the first one. That's a good film," and then they just sort of milk it, but they make so much money that it's so terrible. But it's like, how does this keep getting sequels?
Yeah, well, you can see in the budget v gross that as they go on and as the production costs sort of grow, they are like they have peaked and it has gone back down. For instance, we've got the first one at $15,000 as the budget, with a gross of 194 million, and then the highest point the franchise has ever reached is in at Paranormal Activity 3 with 5 million for its budget and 207 million for its gross. And then when you look at the newest entry in the franchise back in 2015, uh, with a $10 million budget, it only grossed 78 million. So there are huge disparity. There's as it gets more expensive and as production costs grow, they're grossing less and less pretty much since 2011.
With these films is there sort of a sense of like because I think with this first one there would have been like some talk.
Hmm.
There would have been like, well, this is a like there would have been all this hype around it. Word of mouth really, especially for horror films, does insanely well for horror films. I remember just a recent example, Undertone, which came
Yes.
out earlier this year. I haven't seen it. I don't, but I've heard people say that it's like really, you know, scary and like, and there's always this marketing of like, oh, this is like the scariest horror film ever made and shit. And it's like it's so rare that I actually find a horror film that is like actually legitimately scary. Yeah, I think this is a film that is kind of wasted potential. The film is like conceptually I like it. I think they're haunted by a ghost and then he's got like a camera set up to see and look it for it does justify why because there are definitely times where I see found footage films and I'm like, why are you still holding the camera or it's like, oh, you're filming it exactly right where, like, exactly what needs to be seen, which is something that actually I think Blair Witch Project does a very good job of. Is it's the camera work is really terrible, but like
Hmm.
purposely so. It's not like getting perfectly framed shots. I will say though, I think these characters are kind of very annoying. I just think Mika is a bit of a dick. He's just really annoying, not listening to what his girlfriend's saying, and he's just so obsessed with getting, you know, the shots and everything, and he's just pointing a fucking camera in her face the whole time, and it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't work because also these are like relatively, like in Blair Witch Project, they're college students, they're relatively young, they're around my age. Whereas in
Hmm.
this, it feels like these are people, well-adjusted adults with like, jobs and shit. So I think that's sort of the biggest stumbling block is I just don't like the characters.
Hmm.
And I kind of understand like the argument. Someone could be like, well, this film isn't really about the characters, and I get that. But it's just a bit of a drain on the film and just sort of removes any sense of me caring about what happens because I'm like, well, I don't really care because I don't like the characters.
I disagree. I don't want to say that I fully disagree with you because Mika is one of the worst horror characters I've ever seen, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
Truly unbearable. Makes
he
so many
really.
poor decisions, just not even in a horror situation, just as a human being. I find Katie Featherstone's character, whose name escapes me, I just know who plays her.
The
Um,
actresses, yeah.
I think that she does a pretty good job at portraying reasonable reactions, even though it's like scripted and everything, to this supernatural situation. Maybe it stands out more because of the people around her seemingly not really giving a shit that they're being haunted by this spirit. But I think she
Mm.
consistently delivers the most on some genuine reactions. Just because of how poorly her character is written to be this like feels very anti-feminist to me in the fact that like she is constantly like not being saved by Mika, but like she like constantly is just like saying to him like, oh, like I don't feel safe and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And he's just like, well, your opinion doesn't matter. We're gonna get haunted by this ghost. And she's like, I guess you're right. So I would have liked to have seen what I think I really miss from this film is that, and you do see elements of it, of this ghost being the catalyst that causes an emotional rift in their relationship. I feel like if they hit it home harder with that idea and that they've had an extremely strong relationship, and then you slowly start putting in little ideas of doubt throughout with the
Mm.
rising escalation of this spirit, that it becomes more interesting. Yeah, just as it stands, like Mika's freaking character, man. Like,
Dude, uh, it's so weird how it's just there's a scene near the end of the film where there's this guy, he comes to the house and it's like, oh, it's not safe for me here, and then he
the
immediately,
demonologist? Yeah.
yeah, he's like,
I
oh, it's
know
not
what you're
safe
gonna
for me here,
say.
and then he immediately just fucks off, and I'm like, dude, this is your domain, like. It just feels like such a waste, a pointless like moment because it's like he doesn't come back. There's no
Hmm.
relevance to him being there. Like you could take him out and the film does not change. Like it's
No.
really weird.
He more or less walks in to say, yeah, this shit's haunted. Good luck. Like,
Yeah, and again, I just kind of wish there was a bit more of ambiguity to about the film. I'm gonna be
mm,
honest. Like I think because Blair Witch Project, as we were saying, it is kind of ambiguous whether it's real or not because we don't actually see anything. Like we don't
yeah.
see the witch, and I think that is the right call. And I can understand like it might be a bit harder with this one because there's like there's like the security camera set up, whatever. But
Hmm.
like I think there would be ways to write around it. Like for example, like oh the camera wasn't actually turned on, or
Yeah.
something happened and like the footage gets corrupted, or there's like, you know, like I think there would be ways around it. I just think, yeah, I think this is wasted potential, and I'm not look. I'm all for like I don't need all horror films to be ambiguous. Like I can go with supernatural. But I think it kind of needs to be the case here because a big part of this film is like he doesn't think it's real, she does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's clearly very traumatized by it. She thinks a lot's happening. And again, there are sort of different things of like there's one bit where I feel like her keys are thrown on the ground. Like this is very early on, but like her keys are just on the ground or something, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Why the fuck is this on the ground?" Like again, if you don't, because there's sort of like, well, because we don't see it or anything, so it's like, oh, is this real, or is this, are they haunted, or did she just one of them go sleepwalking or something? Like
Mm.
I think there's a lot more for this film to get into. It never really does for me, and I think there are, and I never found it especially scary. I very often am not scared by horror films. I'm just sort of grown accustomed to them that I don't really get like that scared by them. But I can still be like, oh, that was a really good. I can still be like, oh, that was a really great piece of horror. That was a really effective piece of tension that they built, and I just
Mm-hmm.
never got that with this film, and I don't completely know why, because it conceptually I think is really quite a bit scary. Like I
Well,
think there is a lot to it that could be scary, and it just doesn't. Something about it just doesn't completely hit here.
right. Well, I do slightly disagree with that. I do think that this film, whilst not scary to me, has scary components to it. I
Mm,
love this film's use of sustained tension. Like the way it utilizes darkness and silence is so interesting to me, especially when you're in that forced perspective of
mm.
the sort of like security camera over the bedroom.
Which I think, by the way, like as a sort of like concept, that's really great. I think that's a real
Yeah,
like just that shot of there's the camera, there's the bed, and there's the doorway. I think conceptually
yeah.
that is really great. And that's maybe what frustrates me a bit more is it's conceptually so great.
And I think it is similar to the Blair Witch in the fact that when once they step out of that room, especially at that, final scene, we can only use like our own assumptions to guess what's happening. We have no idea really until the camera is being brought with them. Where this film then
Yeah.
begins to lack though, is then when we're being showed things, I feel like it's never being shown in a way that is necessarily interesting. For instance,
Mm.
when they reveal the, I think they do it with flour, right? Where they find the footprints, the weird footprints
Yeah,
in the
they
flour.
they put like a bunch of flour around the doorway, and they're like, oh, if there's like
Mm-hmm.
foot around a bunch. They put it around sort of a bunch of different areas. Really, it's not just that doorway. They sort of go to a few different places, and are like, oh, there's
Yeah.
flour there, there's flour.
But yeah, the reveal of the footprints for me was so underwhelming because they're just like, there's some footprints here, let's follow them. And they find the crawl space, and then they do
Oh, when
the
they go
shot
into
with the crawl
the
space,
in
like up
the
in the
attic,
attic sort
attic,
of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's a scene that really should have been better because I've seen there's a fantastic film called Wreck. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's a really great scene towards the end. It's this great zombie film, and yeah, towards the end of it, there's a scene where they go up into the attic, and again, it's found footage, and like it's one of the most tense scenes I've ever seen in any film because it's so simple, but it's like it just works so well. And I think this film just doesn't have that. Like the guy, he goes into the attic, and in my head I'm like, oh well, here's what should happen and what I assume will happen, and then it doesn't really feel like anything happens. Like it really just felt like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, it's very underwhelming in many parts. It leaves you wanting more. It does some things right. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and just wail on it for all the bad things, but when there's so many like poor choices, it's hard not to notice them.
It's a film that isn't. It's not like a completely terrible film. Like it's a very watchable bit of horror nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I've found that I'm very good at going with horror and just sort of being like, yeah, this isn't like particularly great, but it's like it's watchable in a way that I can't with other genres. I find that interesting that I can go with it with horror for some reason, and it's a more of a stumbling block with like other genres I find. But I think that it's a film that could be so much better because I think the general concept, the general premise of it is one I really like. And I think, yeah, just, I mean, the poster is them in bed with the camera in the doorway. And, like, that's great. That's really great as a setup. And then it just doesn't feel like they fully explore it. Certainly not in the direction and the way I want it to. But it even, I'm not, not that I think every film needs to be exactly what I want it to be, but it doesn't feel like it goes in an interesting, different direction with the actual horror and how it actually, explores the idea of what it's doing. I mean, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Like, yeah, I'd never really choose to watch it again, but it's under 90 minutes, which I appreciate. It doesn't really overstay its welcome. It's just like it should be so much better than it actually is. Yeah, I don't hate it. I didn't dislike watching it, but I wouldn't choose to watch it again.
Yeah, I'm sitting at about a 6 out of 10. I strongly doubt that I'll ever rewatch this again. This is my second time watching. Like, I even say in my review, I don't think I'll ever tackle the rest of these films. I'll surprise myself if I do. Um, I think that there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, but at the end of the day, it's a film that when there's better horror media out there, I'm not going to keep
Mm.
coming back to it.
So yeah, that's Paranormal Activity, and then we move on to the final film that we're going to be talking about this week, Obsession. Currently taking cinemas by storm. It's well on its way to gross $100 million, I think. Like, I think it's on that track to gross that much.
I think it's
Um,
made that by now. I don't
yeah,
actually know though.
I'm just looking. Wikipedia has it listed as the box office at 38 million, but I don't know how often
Right.
that gets updated. You were telling, as I mentioned earlier, you were telling me before this came out, this was going to be film of the year. I didn't know anything about it really.
Yeah.
I think all I knew when I did go in to see this film was just like the general premise of it, and that everybody was saying it's this amazing film, amazing
Mhm.
horror film. So I saw this, yeah, sort of a couple days after it had come out, so there had been hype. The cinema I went to see it at was one of the most packed screenings I've ever been to for any film recently. Like, I genuinely cannot remember the last time I sat in a cinema that was that packed. But yeah, this was insanely packed. It was from what I could tell, it was mostly like teenage girls, which didn't help because they did laugh at a lot of points that I don't think were meant to be funny. Because this is a very new film, and I'll say this: if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you do see it.
Mhm.
Because I feel like we kind of have to get into spoilers just a little bit, just to really delve into this film and to get into it and
Yeah, I
why
was
it's
gonna
so
say the
good.
same. Yeah.
Like, pause this, go see it.
Then
Uh,
come back and listen.
Come back and listen to the rest of this. Just like, it's a great film. I really think it's best if you know as little as possible, because I didn't really know much of anything going into it.
Yeah.
Welcome back if you've done that and you've come back to this. If you haven't, that's fine. I'm keeping it in anyway.
I was just gonna say, I don't even remember where I heard about Obsession. I have no idea what really got me onto it. I heard about this film before the first trailer was out, and just the premise, like the monkey paw sort of premise, I was like, I'm in. That
Mm.
sounds super fascinating to me. And then, more marketing sort of stuff came out. I'm listening to the early reviews over in the States and stuff, and I'm just hearing it's great, it's great, it's great. And I was like, man, I cannot wait to watch Obsession. After after work, I remember I finished early that day, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, I can go watch Obsession. I sit down, there's two other people in the theater, and yeah, man, I loved so much of this film.
Yeah, I mean, this is directed by Curry Baker, which I believe this is his second feature, or is it Curry Barker? Curry Barker,
Cory
sorry.
Barker. I've
Um,
heard a lot
yeah,
of people consider this his first feature. This is, I'm hearing people call this Cory Barker's first feature film, but he did Milk and Cereal. I did. There's so much I want to say, and then there's so like it would just be too long of an episode. But yeah, so some people calling it his first feature. I would consider it his second.
I mean, Wikipedia says my Milk and Cereal is his feature directorial debut. And I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be his feature film. It apparently it was like posted to YouTube, I think,
Yeah,
and it had a budget of $800. Yeah, I think Curry Barker has immediately established himself as one of the most interesting directors working right now. Um,
absolutely. I think this film asserts him as someone to watch for the future. Like,
and
I
yeah,
can't really think of many other people's, even though it's not his debut, like theatrical debuts, where I've immediately gone, I need to watch everything this person does or has done.
Yeah, I mean, horror is right now is like the amount of incredible horror directors we have working right now. Like we are in a really, really great place for horror, just in
Mhm.
terms of who's making horror, right? I mean, we've got Ryan Coogler, we've got Jordan Peele, we've got Zach Cregger, we've got Lee Cronin, we've got Curry Barker now. Like there's so many. Near DaCosta has done a lot of
Mhm.
horror work. Like there's such a great world of horror directors right now, and it's it's great to see that how much horror is thriving in terms of people who are working in that industry and making films to the quality that they are. I mean, to sort of get into the film properly, Inda Navaretti, hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Indie Never yeah.
Inda Navaretti is phenomenal in this film. Genuinely, it's one of those performances where it's like, okay, I want to see what she does
Yeah.
because
I
that
think she
is
is about to be extremely employed in the future. I
yeah
think we're going to see her in a lot more stuff. If I were to compare her to like some horror icons, like recent horror icons, I would say it's very in the same vein as Toni Collette in Hereditary, Mia Goth in Pearl, and Florence Pugh in Midsommar. Like it is just one of those performances where you're like gripped by this. It's both physical and emotional in such a strong way.
yeah. I think she is the part that really carries the film.
Hmm.
And I think that, and yeah, one thought I think I've said this to you, but I was just thinking while I was watching this, I was like, this could have just been Mikey Madison, honestly. Like I was just thinking,
Yeah.
like this is a Mikey Madison type role, and I think she's truly outstanding in this film. Like genuinely funny at times where I think it is supposed to be funny and genuinely scary. Um,
Yeah.
there's just it's the film. I think this is a film that does a really great job of balancing because I would say this is a dark comedy, but I don't know if I'd
There's
say
comedic aspects to it for
yeah I
sure.
don't know if I'd say
I
it's a
would
dark
100%
comedy,
agree.
but it's definitely got darkly comedic moments. Like one
Hmm.
of my favorite bits in the film is when there's the Jenga game and then she just does that giant fucking sad face, like right
Hmm.
at him. And it's
Yeah.
such great uncomfortable comedy where she walks around, she like pulls the girl like the girl's chair back and then sits down next to Bear. I think is
Yeah.
genuinely really darkly funny. Like I found it really funny, honestly, and I've seen some
Mm.
takes from people online who are like, "Oh, why are people laughing? Like this is so depressing." And it's like, well, I'm not laughing at her, being essentially mind raped.
Mm.
That's what's happening here. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at this moment of dark comedy, like
Yeah.
because I think yeah, there's a lot of people who sort of don't completely sort of understand that like a film can be multiple genres at once. Like you can have something that is quite dark and make it funny. I think I think it's very sort of the way people look at certain film as being like, well, it has to be, oh, if it's horror, it can't be funny or something like that. And I think
Mm.
that's a very simplistic take to have, and I just think yeah, it's really really funny.
Well, I mean,
But
Curry Barker's been doing sketch comedy for a long time, so I feel like it's only
yeah,
natural for him to insert comedy. And when you think about it, like, comedy and horror are so intertwined in the fact that they're all reaction based. So,
yeah,
of course, the funniest people, like, even look at Jordan Peele as well, who's been extremely successful in creating horror. I think the
yeah.
funniest people so fantastic at making horror films due
Mm.
to the fact that they're just like, I know how to get a reaction out of people.
Yeah, it balances the comedy well, but it never the comedy. I think it is funny, but it also never loses the horror, which is something that can
Mm,
happen with horror comedies. Is they sort of lose one or the other. More often than not, they lose the horror than they lose the comedy. But we've got Michael Johnston as Bear.
yeah, and I
Uh,
was about to mention Michael Johnson as well because what a complex character. Like,
yeah,
even you can see him as a protagonist, you can also see him as an antagonist. And,
yeah,
like, even though he is like a surrogate for the audience, because you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, what if I was in this situation? You can't help but also feel like he put himself in this situation. And he,
yeah.
like,
He's
it's very complex.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, it should be that he's not a very good person.
No,
Um,
absolutely not.
he, you know, he. It's. I mean, it's this thing of like, well, it's almost this. I would say it's almost this sort of nice guy sort of fallacy where he sort of thinks like, well, yeah, done this, I deserve.
Yeah.
And I mean, he makes a wish that removes any semblance of choice.
Yeah, there's no autonomy left. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's genuinely it's like yeah, it's a very disturbing idea,
He he's a
that
disturbing character, to be honest. Like, obviously
yeah.
Nikki is way more scary, but he's disturbing. Um,
And yeah,
like,
the only reason, that she's like that is because of him. She's only the way she is because of the decision that he made. I mean, objectively, it's a selfish decision. It's just this thing of like, I'm sure that most people can relate to, you want to like ask a girl out or guy out in some cases you sort of you don't know how to, you sort of are like, oh, how do I approach it, how do I do it, blah, blah, blah. Like there's all these sort of parts of like, oh, but what if she says no, and you sort of got all this anxiety about it. And I think the film never loses sight of the fact, like, because the film never, or at least to me, it never feels like it's trying to make him out to be like a like a good person.
well, I mean, no, there's literally the scene where we see real Nikki talking while I think Curry even refers to her as Freaky Nikki is asleep, and she's like,
Yeah,
"Kill me, please kill me." And his response to that is, "Why didn't you just love me?" Like,
yeah. And is it that same scene where he says, "Is being with me so? Why is being with me
yeah,
so
like
terrible?"
that's what I kind of mean. Like, why is the idea of being with me so terrible? Like, he
And it,
makes it about
yeah,
him, and makes himself the victim once again. Like,
yeah,
he's a terrible person.
yeah. I think the film, yeah, I think the film is genuinely. It's a really effectively scary film. I mean, there's a great moment when Bear he wakes up and Nikki's just there in the corner of the room.
Thank you. That's the scariest scene in the whole movie. For me, I shit my pants watching that. I think
Yeah,
it is one of the scariest scenes in any movie that I've ever seen. It's unnerving. The way she moves is terrifying.
I think that did get some laughs from people. There's like this sort of almost staticky, stop motion esque looking moment where she like walks, you know, out of the like she's in the room and then she walks out of the room. Like I think that did
hmm
get some laughs, but I'm like I don't know. I found that quite unnerving to be honest.
When she creeps out of the corner and she's got the little T-Rex arms going, and
Mm.
like she's just slowly creeping forward, and she rushes back to the corner when he's like come
Yeah,
back to bed.
yeah,
I have never had such a visceral reaction to something that's not a jump scare before. Like backed up in my chair. I
yeah.
I was gonna ask you, in terms of like the levels of this film being scary, do you think this is one of the scariest films you've ever seen? Because for me, it's pretty like clear that it is. I think Hereditary might be in competition just because of the way it ramps up. But I found this like consistently scary. I was just sat there the
Hmm.
entire time, like just, sweaty palms, man. Like, and
I think
there's
yeah,
some predictability to it, but most of the time you're just like, I don't know what's gonna happen next.
it does a very good job of being like because so much of what makes it scary to me is like it's a bit uncanny. Like
Mm-hmm.
like what she's doing is kind of uncanny. Like there's the sort of like I mean that scene where she's in like the corner of the room and you can't see her, but you can tell she's just got this like expression on her face and you can't make out completely what it is. It's a really like just the knowledge that like because I sort of I watching it I was piecing in my head like okay it looks like there's some form of a smile there but
Mm.
it's not like a normal smile.
Yeah,
It's
her
like
like
a
face is stretched and
yeah, it's
like yeah,
like
like you're
it's
saying,
a
it's kind of got this uncanny valley sort of effect.
yeah, it's like and I think that is kind of for me I find that really scary. The
Mm.
uncanny because it's not like something that it's not like oh this is like a creature or something like it's not like oh insane amounts of prosthetics and stuff to make it scary it's just someone's face but
Yeah,
the
and it's so
way
slight that you're like,
yeah
am
and I
I
mean
am like it gives you paranoia.
yeah and I think that's part of what makes it scary is because it's like you can tell something's not right you can tell something's different but you almost can't tell what it is and I think that is quite scary of like
Yeah.
I know something's not right here but I can't place what it is, There's nothing like I can't place it, place what is different. I just know something is. And I think this film does a really great job of tapping into that fear of something being wrong and something being uncanny, but you just cannot put your finger on like what it is.
I was gonna say probably towards the end, but I'll say it now because it feels like a good time to say it. This is in my top 10, like my top 10 horror films, and I'd even say it brinks on being top 5 material. because I've never had such a visceral reaction watching a horror film just consistently throughout, because I feel like it's so well paced that by the time Nikki is possessed, I was just uncomfortable from then. Even when she first sort of flips, not in the bedroom scene, but when she is initially, I don't want to call it possessed, but like when she becomes Freaky Nikki, when she's like, my cat just died. And it's like, don't you
Yeah.
mean my cat?
Mm,
Instant alarm bells. You're like, what the hell is going on?
yeah. And there are definitely parts of this film where to me it's like, okay, I know where it's gonna go with this. There's like she says like, oh, about her dad having cancer or whatever. And immediately I was just like, that's not real, is it?
Mm-hmm.
But it just because, but that doesn't negate the effectiveness of the film and effectiveness of the horror because it's still like, well, just because called that it's gonna be what's gonna happen doesn't necessarily mean it's any lesser for that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many moments in the film where it's like there's that scene where he is like he's gone to work and he's talking with his mate Ian, is that the
Ian, yeah.
yeah, at the store, and Nikki just keeps looking at him like
Yeah,
her
she's
eyes just
unfocused in the background and you just see her still facing him.
yeah. And there's the scene in the restaurant where he's on the phone and then she comes out from the booth, looks
Mm-hmm.
for a bit and then goes back and sits down, and I'm like, that's just such great, this film is just such great filmmaking with like it just leaves you to sit in what's happening and it doesn't telegraph it. Like there's a bit that did actually genuinely get my audience when I saw it when it's sort of near the front of the film. It's when Bear he's in his place and he's just sitting there, and and then there's like a shadow moves in front of like the
The
blinds,
window?
the
Yeah,
window, yeah,
I
like
know what
that
you're talking about,
genuinely
yeah.
got me, and then it sort of left me on edge for the rest of the film of like looking at the background of like every time there's like just a static shot, like when
Mm-hmm.
he's on the phone to the wish people and he's just in the car
Yeah.
and I'm just like looking at him like
You were
I'm
looking out?
yeah, I'm like
Yep, I
something's
was
gonna
doing the same
happen.
thing. I was like, she's just gonna be there when they cut back to
Yeah.
that shot.
And
Um,
there's the scene sort of towards the near the end of the film where she absolutely brutally fucking murders I
Sarah,
forget
yeah,
Sarah in the car.
yeah.
And again, it was that thing where like I know something's gonna happen, but I
Yeah.
didn't expect her to like fucking run into frame and then, you know, bash her against the fucking
Mm.
against the fucking steering wheel. Like that I didn't expect because I was just so used to just seeing shots and you see something sort of slink around in the background or like there's a shadow and then it moves. Or, like I was expecting that. I did not expect someone to her to run in and bash this girl's head against the fucking steering wheel. And
Yeah.
it goes on for so long. Like the way she just is just repeatedly
Well,
slams her
initially
head.
the film was gonna get an R rating because that scene goes on for longer,
Oh my god, that is
and they had to cut it down and have it be shorter in order to make it like in order to lower the rating.
yeah,
Which
which
to me
is
is just like, what do you mean shorten it? It goes on for so long.
yeah, it already feels like it probably goes on a bit longer than necessary, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think that does also just kind of indicate how stupid fucking like ratings for films are, like the MPAA, is
Mm-hmm.
how stupid they are because it's like, oh, so we're allowed to show it, just it can't be quite that long, but we're allowed to show it, this someone getting their head repeatedly slammed against the steering wheel.
They show a lot worse stuff than the steering wheel, in my opinion anyway. Think about the scene where it's right after the restaurant date. She's essentially like raping Nikki. Obviously from the surface level you don't think that. But from anyone
Mm.
else's like context who's thinking deeply, Freaky Nikki has obviously consented, but she has no autonomy. She has to
Yeah, I
say
mean,
yes, essentially.
there's the really uncomfortable sex scene where she's making sounds like she's audibly like moaning, and then but the camera's like going in on her face, and her face is just like blank, like there's no expression
Yeah,
on
it's
her
just
face.
basically dead straight. Yeah.
That's really
But yeah,
fucking unnerving.
but yeah, do you get what I mean though? Like, where's the line? Because you can include a
Yeah,
scene where like someone is essentially raped and not increase your rating, but then you're like, it's yucky blood, so we have to say no. Like,
yeah, it's
come on.
just this weird thing of like, what is the line and where do you draw the line? Because I'm not bothered or offended by like violence. Like I've got a pretty strong stomach. I'm not like
Yeah.
squeamish about violence and stuff. I do get squeamish about like rape and shit. Like that
Hmm.
is what gets to me and makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
I'm kind
think,
of the same. There's very few violent things. I think I was spoken to you
yeah,
about this before. Where I actually become like that is disgusting.
when it comes to more sexual stuff, well, I don't even know if sexual is technically like the. I mean, it is technically, but also it doesn't feel like the right word because it's not like. But like, yeah, assault and shit like that.
Yeah,
That's where I get very squeamish, and I'm like, okay, I
yeah.
can't. This, I feel wrong watching this, and that's the point. I don't think the film is. It's not glamorizing. It's not glorifying it
No,
because that's a
it's
problem I
definitely
found.
not.
I've found with some films where they have a scene where a character's like assaulted, it's not filmed. It's overly like produced, like directed and shot and everything, and I'm like, this is not meant to be titillating. This is not meant to be erotic. This is meant to make me feel uncomfortable, and it's being filmed like a porno. You know, like it just doesn't. And that's sort of the problem that comes from it is there's so many filmmakers who include that in their films or whatever, but it just the way it's crafted and filmed and everything, I'm just like it just feels wrong. But that was probably one of the more uncomfortable scenes for me. I did find the party scene very uncomfortable. I was
Yeah,
like, and again, this is all stuff that's meant to make me uncomfortable because he says like, "Oh, I'm not gonna bring her. I'm not gonna bring her," and then he brings her, and I'm like, "See, that seems like a fairly like I feel like this is just a thing that happens where let's have a boys' night, and then one of the guys brings his girlfriend. You know, like that's sort of just a trope, definitely. Like I've definitely seen a lot of shows, certainly a lot of sitcoms where they're like, "Oh, don't bring your girlfriend, man. It's just a boys' night," and then the girlfriend's brought, and then you know, I just think. Also, can I just say, Ian? I know we've talked about how terrible Bear is, but Ian is a fucking piece of shit. Like he fucking sucks.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he
He
really
does suck.
fucking sucks because if I remember correctly, we learned that he was sleeping with Nikki, right? Like him and Nikki were like
Yeah,
kind of thing
they
going on,
were together. Yeah,
and
well,
I'm
not
just
together, together, but they were hooking up. Yeah,
yeah, and it's just like, dude, that's not. You can't do that to your mate. Like, you can't do that. Like, I'm sorry, that's just really shit. Like, honestly, I was just like, dude, there's just like there's certain rules, man. There's a code, and it's like it's just so weird because he's fucking sucks.
mm,
And also, there's the bit where he says, "Oh," where he gets the wish, and he's like, "Oh, I want $1 billion," and then just went, just fuck it, and it's just like, it's funny, but it's also just like, fuck, there
yeah. You're
could
like,
have,
dude, lock in.
yeah, it's like, dude, like, come on, bro,
Yeah, you've just fucked someone who's essentially like one of your best friends. Even though
yeah,
he's kind of not his friend, he does so much shitty stuff to him. Like even
yeah,
the start where his like he asks him to be emotionally like the opening where he's
uh,
asks Bear to be emotionally vulnerable and he is and then it's like dude don't ever do that again.
It's just like, what is what is your advice here? Like, I think Sarah's the only like decent person in this, and she gets brutally murdered. Like,
Yeah, there's kind of no one else that I can. Oh, I mean, it's technically like not really like delved into, but there's like the manager, the
yeah, Andy
manager of like the
Richter.
music place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I was just like, the fuck is Andy Richter doing here? I was like, I know that guy. What is he doing here? And he's not really much of a character, really. He's just there because why not? Yeah, like Sarah's the only pretty. I don't. I'm trying to remember if she does. I don't think she does anything really that bad. Like she likes Bear, which is debatable whether that's a good thing or not because it's Bear. Like, come on,
yeah, raise
you
your
know,
standards.
come on. You aspire a little bit, please. But I'm not gonna judge, But and it's like it's just weird how she gets the worst ending out of any. Well, actually, no, that's true. Nikki gets the worst ending.
Oh yeah, what do you? Because I've heard this is just like kind of outside of the world of the film, I suppose. Nikki's fucked, right? Like she's
Oh yeah, I think because the you were telling me they had a different ending,
hmm.
and I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that ending would have worked as well. I
Yeah,
really
in
think,
the original ending, because I've been looking at a heap of behind the scenes stuff. Um,
yeah, they
in the
filmed this
original
from my
ending,
understanding, didn't they?
yes, they filmed this. They filmed the other ending, the ending that we see, in one take.
Yeah,
Um, all the
and
others were the original ending, where what happens is Nikki snaps out of it, sees that everyone's dead, goes on, uh, and then goes fuck this and shoots herself with a gun because she just doesn't want to have to deal with it.
it would have not been. I don't. I It would not have worked as well if she just killed herself. I really think the film. I think it works so much better that they're like, oh, this is. I need to phrase this probably because otherwise I'm gonna sound really bad. But I think it just works so much better that there's just Nikki surrounded by all this and like the way she's reacting to
Yeah, because
like
she essentially has no memories, from my understanding, of what's going on. She's just woke, like, she has been essentially between the times where she's woken up, just been
yeah,
teleported to this point in time. And I have
yeah,
heard other people say that maybe that's not the case because she has been in this other place mentally, as we know from when she's talking in her sleep,
mm,
in Freaky Nikki's sleep.
yeah,
But in my opinion, the way I see it is just that like she is like it's not a get out sort of situation where
no,
she's stuck just watching everything happen. Like in the driver's seat but not in control. I think it's much more of a thing of just like where am I? Like what has happened? And I've heard in his next film that he will be doing a reference to what happened afterwards. But I heard it very loosely in an interview that he did for Obsession. So I do not know what actually does happen. I just know he said he will be Easter egging in his next film, Anything But Ghosts.
which I was reading is seemingly scheduled to come out next year. Cool. I'll see it when
Yeah.
it's out. Yeah, I think the ending as it is great. Because I was thinking as I was watching this because he goes into to the bathroom and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I was like, and I was sort of thinking like at the beginning of the movie where he opens the 'cause I was like, what the fuck is the point of the cat? The cat
Mm.
dying,
He
and I
is the
was like,
cat.
oh, there's all the, and I was like, oh, that's a lot of pills, and I'm like, that's probably gonna come back later. And it does come
Yeah.
back at the very end. And
Mhm.
the moment he was entered the bathroom, I'm like, that's what's gonna happen here. He's gonna open it,
Yeah.
and then there's that fucking great moment where she uses the because there's this great shot where he comes out, of the of the room and everything, and then
Yeah.
and then the camera just pans down and there's the broken wish, and I was like,
Yeah, the One
oh,
Wish
that's
Willow,
really good.
yeah.
Yeah, and I sort of at that moment I was like, so does that mean it's not gonna work because like because he's at this point he's fucking taking tons of fucking pills at this point. He's taking like a whole
Yeah.
bottle of pills, which I always hate when I watch a film and a character takes a pill dry. They just fucking raw dog a pill. I'm like, dude, that does not happen. People don't just
Yeah.
raw dog pills like that. Like they don't. I
No, I
genuinely
agree with you.
it's just it's not even something that bothers me. It's just something that I've noticed in so many films. Character they'll just take a pill and they'll just like chuck it in their mouth and take like a little sip of a drink and then
But
that
also some
somehow
people, like, I think he chews them, does he not, Bear? I swear
oh
he
did he
does.
choose him?
I think he chews them. Maybe I'm making
Mm,
that up, though. I could
mm.
be gaslighting you.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a great film. I
yeah,
thought
I
it was
think it's
really great.
fantastic. Do you wanna do
I
scores and things?
Yeah. Just before I put a score on it, I mean,
Okay, yeah,
would
yeah.
you? Because Cory Barker has talked about the possibility of not continuing this story, but doing like an anthology type show where we just see a bunch of different Willow wishes. I think I wouldn't mind that. I think there's
I
definitely a realm to play in.
I like the anthology idea. I do not want ever a direct sequel to Obsession.
No,
I
no,
do
no,
not
no,
wanna see these characters again. I don't wanna see how does Nikki navigate this situation now that,
no, 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 no.
everyone's dead. I don't I don't want a thing of like, oh well, because Freaky Nikki made the other wish, Nikki can make her own wish, and she wishes for them to
No,
come back or something.
nope, 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 nope.
So stupid. I do not touch this film ever again. I feel the same way about Sinners. Don't make a direct sequel to Sinners. I don't care if it's a prequel. I don't care what it is. Do not do it. If you want to do
Yeah,
something based in the same world, or you want to do something based on the One Wish Willow, I have no problem with that. Do an anthology because I feel like it's
yeah.
an interesting premise.
I think you could get several seasons of just different ideas, just different wishes.
Yeah, get people to
Like,
come in and get different directors for each episode.
yeah,
Have it all
just
be
and
tonally different. I feel like
yeah,
it could be really
have
strong.
one set in like the early 1900s or whenever these
Mm,
or however old these Willow wishes are. Like, just do
yeah.
that. Just pick different time periods and just be like, let's just set one there and one there and one there.
Mm,
Like, just do that. It would because and obviously the quality would probably vary from episode to episode because it's an
yeah.
anthology, and I get that. But I would be interested to see how other directors would play with the format.
Mhm.
What they would do with this idea, because there's a lot to get from this idea. I think there's a
You could
lot
even,
that,
like, recontextualize existing stories to be like, "Well, the reason that happened is because of a One Wish Willow."
like, you mean
The
like
thing that jumps to mind
real
well, not real
historical
events, but,
event,
like, existing stories, like, something that jumps to my mind, is the concept of a Midas touch, where, like, everything you
right?
touch turns to gold, including people, like the people that you love or something like that. So
Mm,
take the original myth of, the Midas touch and be like, "Well, the reason that happened was actually because of the One Wish Willow," or, like, adapt it
right.
and things like that. There's so
Yeah.
much potential
I mean, yeah, because
in
this
the
film is
story.
just, yeah, a monkey's paw story. Just take
Yeah.
classic stories like that and just modernize them. And, like, it's not easy to, like, it would be very easy to just do the Midas touch and just do, like, a modern version of that because it's a
Yeah.
timeless story.
Mhm.
You could do like a Frankenstein type shit, where someone's like, "Oh, I want to resurrect this person," and they come back as a zombie. Like there's a lot you can play with as
Yeah,
like
go
a
full on Pet
concept.
Cemetery.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot they could take from. Just look at
Mhm.
like stories and just be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's just contextualize it to this,"
Yeah.
and it would just work. Like
Yeah,
it
definitely.
wouldn't be. It would be. You could get so many seasons out of this as a show.
Mm.
It could be like a new. Well, no, not exactly like Black Mirror or something. But like new Twilight Zone would be a more.
Yeah.
description, you know.
Yeah,
Again,
just do a
just takes
couple 8 to 10 episode seasons where,
yeah.
like, it
And
doesn't need to be this huge thing.
but I mean, I give it a very solid 8 out of 10. I think it's great. I want to see it
Yeah.
again. I think it's a really great film, and I don't want to watch films again that often, but I
Mhm.
think it's a genuinely really great. It's really scary. It's best seen with an audience. I think
Yeah.
see this with an audience because that will be the best way you can watch this film.
I've seen this film twice within the span of, like, 5-day gap. When I first saw it, it was a 9 out of 10. I don't wanna say pretentious about my 10s, but I don't wanna give away a 10 straight away.
It's a rating that you should only give when it's like deserved, you know. I see
Yeah.
people who give like lots and lots of films 10 out of 10s every year, and I'm like, guys, there's not that many good films. Like,
Yeah,
there's
you
not
wanna
many
give a
films out
10
there.
to, like, a film that kinda deserves it, like
Yeah,
The
and
Amazing
I'm usually
Spider-Man
like
2.
I need to see this film at least twice before I'm like, yeah, I'll put that number on it.
Just for those who were listening, he didn't pick up on what I said. And he'll listen to it in the edit and it'll be really funny. Anyway, moving on. And then yeah, I watched it a second time, I gave it a 10. First time I saw it, I was pretty much alone in a theater. There was two other people. It gets better with other people in there.
Yeah, was it a good
Which I
audience
didn't
you saw it
expect.
with? Because I
Yeah,
remember
look, a
you
lot of
saw the
young
drama.
people.
Yeah, you saw
Yeah,
the
the
drama
drama
earlier
was one
this
of the
year.
worst
Yeah,
watching experiences of my life. Great film, but just yeah, tough to watch. I'll need to watch it again. But no, so it was a lot of young people, so I was initially a little worried, but I think it kind of scared people pretty fast into like I don't want to speak or anything because I'm just so absorbed in this tense sort of story. And it's not like your typical horror movie, like where you could go and watch for instance, The Mummy that just came out recently, where I feel like if you had a teenage audience, they'd be like, "Oh, this is like crap," because it's just, the scares are a little formulaic and stuff. But no, it was a great audience. A lot of laughs, but also a lot of like jumps and a lot of screams. I also went with one of my friends, who I went with a small group of people, but one of my friends who sat next to me when the scene happens literally jumped out of her chair, and I managed to catch her phone that went flying as well. um, but no, really, like it is so much fun to watch with other people. So go and watch this with a group of friends.
yeah,
You'll bond over it because you'll all be scared.
yeah. Sorry, did
Uh,
you put a rating on Obsessions?
I think I did. Yeah, initially gave it a 9. Now giving it a
Yeah.
10. It'll probably stay as a 10. Uh, Easily
Mm,
top 10, top 5 horror films for me.
yeah.
Uh, I
Is
will
it?
probably make a list at some point
Yeah. I mean,
of.
would you say is it the best film you've seen this year?
It's my favorite film I've seen this year. It's not the best film I've seen this year, which I know probably hearing that you're like, what the fuck does that mean? I
I mean, I understand there's a difference between like best and like favorites.
I would say that Project Hail Mary is definitely above. And
Mm,
I'm going to rewatch Mighty Supreme to see if it overtakes Mighty Supreme. Other than
yeah.
that, those are the only two films that I have above Obsession.
As I sort of said towards the front of this, which was fucking ages ago now,
Yeah,
we're
like
doing
2
this
hours.
tied to the release of the Backrooms film by
Mhm.
A24, which I I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping it's great. I've been looking
Mhm.
forward to this film for a while. The trailers haven't done a whole lot for me, I will be honest. Not that they're bad, but they're not great.
Do you think that's out of the fact that they don't show a ton other than the sort of the same stuff we have seen?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the question is what does this do that like the shorts that Came Parsons has done on YouTube? Like what else how bigger can they go with this is I guess the question for me.
If I were to make my guess, I think they're not trying to necessarily make the Backrooms concept bigger. I think they're just translating those shorts into a feature and
Hmm.
supplying it with sort of a surrogate story in order to get people attached to the idea of the Backrooms. Yeah, I think in terms of expanding on the Backrooms concept, we're not going to see a lot of that. But I do see them making a pretty strong, like, character based story.
I will say that one of the confirmed cast members is, I forget his name, but he was the fucking weird
Yes,
creature
we
at the end
talked
of
about this
Alien
outside of the
Romulus.
pod. Yep.
Yeah. And if you,
He
I mean, if you've
terrified
seen
me
Alien,
in Alien. Yeah.
yeah, if you haven't seen Alien Romulus, or if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And
Hmm.
I'm legitimately fascinated to see what he is, because he's a fucking tall guy. He's like 7'7",
Yeah, ex
um,
basketball player. Like,
and just very lanky, very thin.
hmm.
Um, and so I'm just, yeah, I it's I if they go as hard as they did with Alien Romulus in terms of making him scary, this is gonna be a good film, I reckon. But
Yeah, I mean, Alien Romulus had one of the scariest jump scares for me personally in it. So if they
when she's
do,
climbing up the,
yep, and he
yeah,
just like appears, probably one of the scariest jump scares I've ever endured. So if they do
it's
anything on that
yeah.
level, I'll be terrified.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully, I want them to really make a scary horror, like something that's actually fucking scary. That's what I want this
Yeah.
Backrooms film to
I
be.
I feel like we're gonna get a lot of complaints. I don't know if there are complaints already of, I think a lot of this film is just gonna be people waltzing around the back rooms. So an average audience member may not love that. I think we're gonna get some complaints of just like not enough
I'm,
action. It's slow
yeah,
burning.
I'm wondering if we're gonna get how much they're actually gonna show us,
Hmm.
like of what's in the back rooms, because I kind of don't want to see a whole lot. Like, I really don't. I think the less we see, the better.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to bother some people. I mean, as we mentioned earlier, with Blair Witch Project, you don't really see the witch, and that bothers people. And I think that might be something that's going to happen here. And frankly, I don't need to see everything. You know, just give me bits and pieces, and I'll be happy. I don't need to see everything. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. I like A24, very consistently good. I think they're one of the best studios working right now. I'm not a fan of the whole AI stuff. I will be honest.
AI.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't heard
believe they
anything
said
about
they were.
AI.
I believe they said they were opening like an AI division or something. I believe it
Wrap it
was
up, A24.
A24. I believe it was A24.
No way. The studio known for independent filmmaking is gonna be going into AI stuff. Like,
Yeah,
what
no,
a contradiction.
it seems like they're going into AI in some way. I don't know what
Oh, that
the
pisses me off, dude.
I mean, these are the people that released Brutalist, which did utilize AI, which I remember you weren't a fan of.
Yeah, I think that's really stupid, and the fact that it won so many awards is also stupid. That's
Um,
personal, but
yeah,
you know,
they've got an AI division they're opening. So
well, consider this a message to you, A24. Stop it. Don't do that.
yeah,
'Cause that's
it's
dumb.
uh it's yeah, I mean, it's not great, but I did notice in one of like the first, like, sort of one of the teasers they did, where you see like the back rooms, and I was like, this looks really terrible. And I'm like, this can't be AI, right? Like, it looks bad, but like, is it AI looking bad?
Look, I mean, at this rate, I think AI is probably in a lot of the productions we watch, and we just don't know it. There was a lot of talk about Marvel's The Punisher One Last Kill with the really bad CGI of
Oh
whether
my
or not
god.
that was AI or not.
I mean, I'm hoping for good things. I am. I think they've got some very talented people behind it. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renat Reinsver.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
really interested in his character.
are the two
Uh,
sort of major cast members in this, and I'm a big fan of both of them. I think Renate
yeah,
Reinsford's one of the best female actors working today, and I think Chiwetel's a very consistently solid actor in like basically everything I've ever seen him in.
like in Doctor
Um,
Strange 2. Is it Kane Parsons?
I believe he is directing it, yeah, and
Yeah,
just based on his TV stuff, well, not TV, his YouTube stuff, he's a very good filmmaker. I think he's got a
yeah,
lot of real talent to what he does, and he's like 20, I think. Let
yeah. I
me,
mean, I hope the best for him in terms of this being sort of like
yeah,
the theatrical beginning
yeah. He's
to his
20 to
career.
21 years old. He was born in
Yeah,
either 2005 or 2006, so he
yeah.
is younger than I am. Yeah. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this week's episode. Thank you, Max, for joining me for
No
this
problem.
week.
I had a great time discussing Obsession, of course. Film of the year. Everyone go watch it. And then go
Yeah.
watch Backrooms.
Yeah, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this week's episode, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.